some of your weird stuff.
Okay, well, thank you. I am the president of the AFDCS. I'm also president of the writers unit because I'm basically a storyteller. And thank you for coming. You know, a first day cover is, I got to figure out how to do this. Uh-oh, this may not work. Well, okay. Give me a sec here to figure this out because I didn't practice this part, of course. Okay, there we go. A first day cover is pretty basic. It's a stamp, a postmark, and an envelope or a card, something to put the stamp on, unless, of course, as this one is, it's a stamped envelope, a piece of stationery.
You need to share your screen again.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
I have not done one of these in a while. Got it here?
Yes.
Okay.
Dennis.
I had trouble finding an uncached machine cancel first day cover because I don't have any in my collection. Anyway, this is the basic first day cover. It's really all you need if you're collecting first day covers. Now, this next one, and I've got to figure out how to get, this isn't working. Okay. I can't figure out how to change from one screen to the next. There we go. This is also a pretty basic first day cover, but take a look here in the upper left. This is called a corner card, Hotel Buchanan. It's still not too impressive. Somebody swiped some hotel stationery and used that instead of buying an envelope. But this is a stamp for Buchanan, President Buchanan's home, Wheatland in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So it is actually apropos. And it's easy to overlook that sort of thing. You can embellish a first day cover by adding more stamps. Now, I am probably the preeminent zip block on first day cover collector in the country. I'm probably the only one who collects them, which probably also the worst of them. This is a zip block, however, and you could add a plate block, blocks of 4, pairs, trios, anything you wanted. First day covers, though, can be more, and I'm going to show you some of the possibilities from the basic to the more complex. The first thing you can do is cancels. Now, we call this now an unofficial location. It is a dragon card, by the way, because the stamp was issued in Hyde Park, New York, but this isn't the first day cancel. This is the FDR Library Station postmark. So it's right city, not the postmark you expect. Of course, you can go whole hog here. Somebody took the Switzerland stamp and took it to Geneva, Illinois. So it's an unofficial dual cancel because the Swiss stamp rather is underneath, and it's a joint issue, which kind of neat. And I believe this is Panda Cachets, but I'd have to check a little closer. Jim Thorpe, that stamp was issued in Oklahoma where he was born, but he was sent to a special school for Native Americans or Indians in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. And somehow the stamp was brought to Pennsylvania and postmarked there. This one is a much more elaborate unofficial because there's no tie-in whatsoever between the Ohio State Fair in Columbus and Smokey Bear, other than the fact that they were offering a special cancel that day. And the cachet maker chartered an airplane to get out of El Capitan, New Mexico. Then he took 2 commercial flights. He can't possibly have made any money on this cachet, but it's kind of neat. This one is a multi-year project, another way to embellish what you're working on. There are 3 years of the first 13 statehoods. Each has its own circular date stamp. There are 3 separate first day covers. You can see the joins here. And I did not take this off the page to scan it because I knew I'd never put them back together. So you can see a little bit up here. You can kind of see the photo corners. Not sure who did this, but a guy named Frank Rossiti did a lot of these under all sorts of weird organization names that nobody had ever heard of. The American Civil War Society, Philatelic Society. Then there was the American Confederate Civil, he just did all sorts of things. He was in Trenton, New Jersey. This is the one I did recently. This is 5 years of Civil War cancels on an 8.5 by 11 card. The cachet, which is actually over here, is from a patriotic cover of the time. And then I extended the paper as a background for the rest of it. You have to hold your breath for 5 years or 3 years or whatever it is on these, because if you miss one cancel, the whole project's dead. And for those who aren't aware, in the middle of the Civil War series, I was not living at home. I had taken a job in North Carolina, and so I had to move everything down there, all my Dragon cards, including the servicing for this one, because I didn't dare miss it. Now, there are a lot of different types of production, and printing is the one we're most familiar with. This is commercial offset by a company named Spectrum. I miss them a great deal because they were one of the first to use bright colors. Also, again, an unofficial cancel, I like them. Pictorial, that's used every year at the Masonic National Memorial, I think it says. And it's a commercially printed envelope. This one was printed on an inkjet printer. Also bright colors. Technology has changed a lot since I started doing cachet making. But you can use other media, and that includes things like silkscreen and also an unofficial location cancel, because the stamp was issued in San Francisco. Where else would you issue cable cars? I believe this cachet is Len Piskowitz, who is active in the US Stamp Society and classical stamps. Don't think of him as a cachet maker, but he did this one. There are also people who used carved blocks. A guy named Dave Curtis calls them reduction printing. He explained it to me once. I didn't understand it, but that's fine. Rubber stamps. For a while, I was advertising my first online service, and I would bring envelopes and rubber stamps, because they're cheap, to shows and do first day covers and give them away to people. And since one of the shows, or one of the stamps coming up, was the G stamp, and I was shilling for Genie, it became a nice tie-in, I thought. But there are other media that people use, paints, of course, pencils, and this is colored markers like Flair pens, done at the time by, well, done by a man who at the time was an art student. And based on the covers I have, I loved his work. I think he should have had a very good career. But instead of printed artwork, you can embellish your first day cover just by adding another country's stamp. Now, this is Grenada. Lou Gehrig was probably never there, may not have ever heard of Grenada. I'm not even sure if it existed when he was alive, but it adds to the stamp and makes this Garrick cachet just a little different. I added a sticker to my basketball dragon card. The US is the only country I'm aware of that will cancel anything. As long as there's first class postage and its postmark touches a real live US stamp, they'll cancel stickers. I think somebody once canceled the Woody Wagon stamp on a real Woody Wagon. It's not in my collection, believe me. But if it doesn't move fast enough, we can put a stamp on it and get it canceled. Now, you can't really tell too well from the scan, but this is a 3-dimensional cachet done by a woman whose other hobby, or another hobby, is scrapbooks. And so Safe and the runner sliding in are all raised. And there's a couple of other places. And this is a set of 2. I didn't show both of them. The other one's different. They have different appliques, as they were. By the way, I can't see anybody's screen. So if somebody has a question, either jump in or use the raise hand function under reactions. So that's making a cover 3-dimensional. Dave Bennett, many of you know him or know of him. His career was as an animator, and he worked for a lot of the major studios. He did the Keebler Elves at one point, finished his career with Disney, and he did this cover as a tribute to the animator Jack Bradbury at Warner Brothers. And again, you can't tell too much from here, but you see the little, well, this is actually an animation cell that Dave made, and it's been slipped into the slots so that it will fit and stay on the envelope. And inside each, I just discovered this today, is an insert in which we have a photo of Dave with Jack Bradbury as Bradbury autographs the covers. Of course, you can use a picture postcard, and many people do. They're called maximum cards if they're really close matches. They're difficult to do, however, because mishaps happen. Stamps don't stick to them. Common ink doesn't stick to them. Luckily, the cancellation people in Kansas City have good ink that stays. Almost no other post office has it. And that's why if you're going to do maximum cards, one of the tools you bring with you is a glue stick, which is what I use to put the stamp back on. Don't tell the judges. Occasionally, the Postal Service produces picture postcards, and they have sometimes postage. Canada Post does this too. They have postage there, and I got it canceled. But I also took the matching adhesive stamp and put it on the front. So it's a dual cancel of that. But you know, there was a cover for the booklet of cards, and I cut it off. And that's what the thing at the bottom right is. You can see that it's got a different background than the postcard. Do you remember the 1999 All Aboard Trains stamps? Well, of course, as I just mentioned, I took the Postal Service's cards, had them canceled on the indicia. I also added the matching stamp on the other side. And then I took the box that the card set came in and had that canceled. This is the closest I have to a three-dimensional cachet or cover in my frame. I decided to draw the line at this because I had to mash it as it was. Nothing bigger would go under a frame, and I didn't want to get into that. You can recycle. You take an older, boring first day cover. Art craft cachets are fairly common. Machine cancel. There are hundreds of thousands of John Muir from 1964, but somebody used it again for the John Muir stamp of 1998, part of the Celebrate the Century. So again, a way to beef up an earlier low value first day cover. What am I up to here on the next page? You don't have to use envelopes. This is wallpaper, a piece of wallpaper cut into an envelope shape and then folded. And if you could reach through the screen and rub it, you would know that it was wallpaper because it feels different than paper. And it matches the, at least on my screen, it's partly off, but you can see the Medal of Honor stamp on the right. This is a balsa wood first day cover. There were 4 designs. The size is the postcard size. Every time I've ever seen this, especially in dealer boxes, you find a lot of kindling with them. They break. In fact, in my exhibit, I have a very thick piece of cardboard in this page to keep anybody from flexing it because it won't. And I've lost a couple, but I'm amazed if any of them still exist. This one is leather, and it's hand tooled by a woman in Southern California who does leatherworking. That's her other hobby, or another hobby, I guess I should say. And frankly, we were kind of, all of us, a little bored with flowers and birds every year at AmeriCover. So this was a nice change. And it's a nice thick piece of leather. Not as thick as my box, but it's thick. Now, there are 13 of these in existence. I mention that because the first time I showed this exhibit, and I was a novice, and I'm still a novice, I'm a career silver bronze. The judge, who was not a first day cover person, held up and said, everybody knows there are millions of these. No, there are 13 of these. The reason there's 13, it's a cover from Sports Illustrated. And I had my own copy of the magazine. And I called Sports Illustrated Time Incorporated and I asked to buy more back issues. And they would only sell me 12. So there are 13 of these. And I also used interior photos. I have no clue where mine are, and everything's sold out right away. I probably should have used my brother's name, my mother's name, and everybody else to get more copies, but they might have, maybe not my dog. This is a book cover, and this actually took more work than you'd think. It's a paperback book cover. And anybody remember paperback books? You know, I'm using a Kindle now. They weren't supposed to do this, but booksellers could send the cover back of unsold books and get credit for what they had paid for the book. And so it was very hard to find used books that still had the covers on them, because by the time they got to that used bookstore, most of the booksellers had cheated. So anyway, I did the four major novels for Steinbeck for this one. This is a calendar page. I guess that makes her a calendar girl. And I saw a desk calendar in a bookstore as I was on the checkout line. It was at a discount because it was March. Who wants a calendar for the year at that point? And there's something interesting about this cancellation. Anybody?
Last day of sale.
That's right. It was a short-lived promotion that the Postal Service did in '97. They had special ceremonies at the New York shows. They had impersonators from Marilyn Monroe and James Dean, and I think somebody driving a hot car or something. So I actually had these stashed away for a while. I have like 10 copies of each of them. And there were 12 pages, 12 months. I don't know what this is. It's just a sheet of paper with the color of what I presume is the logo for their 250th anniversary celebration. It was before my time, so you can't blame it on me. And I think it may be a printer's proof, something that was sent out to printers, a hard copy. And a lot of first day cover people in the past have been printers because they could make their own cachets. So I think somebody just took it and had it canceled. As I said earlier, if it doesn't move fast enough, first day cover collectors will put a stamp on it and get it canceled. This may be a menu cover. I haven't figured it out. It is a folder. It has a loosely tacked on with, I assume, some sort of glue, photo of the Capitol with the Lincoln Daniel Chester French statue in the background. And in front are the 5 Civil War stamps and 2 Lincoln stamps. There's nothing inside it. I think you could put a menu in it. Maybe they did. Maybe it's something else. Now this one has, I think, a fun story with it. The day before AmeriCover 2007 in Stamford, Connecticut, there was a fire in the hotel. And we were all told to go away for a while. So my son and I went across the street to a restaurant. And while we're sitting at the table waiting for our order, I looked at the thing they had on the table decoration with a promo. And as you see, it says, it's important to warm up before a fire drill. And since we were having a hot time in the old town that night, I took it and the next day had it postmarked with the celebration stamp, which was issued at the show. You know, really anything goes and anything is fair game. This autographed photo, and those are real autographs from Bobby Thompson and Ralph Branca in Sharpie, cost me $50. Back in the day, you were told in advance what stamps would be coming out. The family and I went to Cooperstown. I bought this photo, and I'm sure most baseball memorabilia people think I ruined it because I put a stamp and cancellation on it. The other story is, by the way, that Bobby Thompson did not, it took him a number of years to reconcile himself to the fact that he was always going to be remembered. Oh, I'm sorry, Ralph Branca was the pitcher, right? Anyway, whoever the pitcher was upset for a long time and then decided, what the hell? This is the smallest first day cover in my collection, and I put the ruler next to it. It doesn't come with the ruler, to show you that it is 3.5 inches by 2 inches long. I only had one ruler, and that's a sticker on it. And there's only room for the circular date stamp because the postmark, the standard postmark at that point was as long as the envelope. It is an envelope, by the way. Even number 10 envelopes deserve some love. Sorry about that. But they issued four different issues on one day at the stamp show. And I took it, got the number 10 version of the love envelope, added the different versions of the love stamps that were being issued. And on my screen, there's 5 thumbnails of you and me, but the entire booklet pane laid flat is there. Since that was a lick and stick, it was fairly easy to move the stamps, of course. This is a 10 by 13 commercial combination. It was produced by Artmaster, and it contains every US space stamp issued up until this point. And it's quite an undertaking. And for a long time, it was one of the biggest cachets, biggest covers in my collection. And then I got this one. And the only way to get this on the scanner was to prop it up and take a photograph because I couldn't get it to go. I couldn't even do half at a time. It didn't fit. It is 11 by 17 inches. It was produced by Anagram. It has every postmark that was issued during World Stamp Expo '89 in Washington, stamps related to the theme of the day, and either the first day postmark or the thematic pictorial that was offered. It takes up 4 pages in my exhibit. They don't make page protectors this big. Now, I like to say think outside the box or the cover box because there's nothing that says the stamp has to go in the upper right corner. And after I serviced a few of these rubber stamp cachets, as I mentioned, I said, you know, Mickey shouldn't have his back to the band. The band is facing to the right, Mickey is facing to the left, so I switched them. Again, the US allows you to do anything. Other countries in Canada, you have to put their stamp and cancel on first. It has to be in the upper right corner. And I think you have to hold your hand behind your back at the same time. I'm not sure, but it's complicated. This is Dave Bennett, and I don't know how to move this, so I'm not. But on the bottom right, you'll see that there's a red arrow, and under it, it says pull here. And I showed you before an animation cell. This is in effect an animated first day cover, because when you pull the tab, Tweety pops out of Sylvester's mouth, which is really clever. Now, an interesting thing about this, when I first exhibited it and Dave saw the exhibit, he didn't realize he had changed colors in the middle of producing these. So let's see, the lettering is different. A couple of the other colors are different here. He changed the bandana. So even cachet makers forget this is what happens when they do hand coloring. Another Dave Bennett, he does weird shapes too. When you open up the more or less standard envelope, and it's in the upper right, up pops the terminal tower in Cleveland, which is Dave's hometown, by the way. He's not a native of Southern California. And again, it has some unofficial location postmarks here, all 5 stamps. But he's not the only one who does weird shapes, because this is Hideaki Nakano, who was definitely a very strange individual. I think it's safe to say that. And he took a number 10 Liberty Bell envelope, took it apart, and then refolded it origami style. He doesn't say it here, but on a couple of the other origami ones, he boasts on the back that he didn't cut it at all. This one I think was cut, but I can't tell for sure. And he also always put perfins. Every one of his covers has HN as a perfin on his stamp, and then he signs it and has a little rubber stamp mark down there. And I've got a couple of others, and then basically I've take questions and stuff, but I thought you might like to see, this is the way it looks in the exhibit. I had to use, instead of white paper, I used colored paper to show it off. However, I didn't like the fact that the big photo corners were showing. So here's what I did was I took little triangles of paper from another sheet of paper in the same ream, and I stuff it into the photo corners behind his Liberty Bell. And that's how I got it done. Now, do I have anything else? Well, I want to tell you about the American First Day Cover Society. We're doing ads here. We're a fun group of people. We have people who take first day covers very seriously and do serious research. I'm not one of them. The last footnote I did was to Webster's Dictionary. You can be as serious as you want on first day coverage. You can have a lot of fun. I think we have a lot of fun, and we have a lot of services, and we're adding more, I hope every month. Maybe not every day, but every month to the AFDCS. And I think I have 2 more covers here. This is what would be called the favor sheet. It's simply a sheet of parchment colored paper. You can kind of see it here. And somebody printed on it the cachet and then the entire sheet of stamps. Now, a purist might say that there's only one postmark. The other 19 stamps aren't tied, but they're all C-tenant, and I mean, you can't really, I don't know. I wouldn't be that much of a purist. And what do I have next? Oh, just the beginning slide. That's basically my presentation. There's other weird